Welcome to CS Connect. My name is Diana. Today we are going to look at the book of 2nd John, and it's going to give us advice for how we should take a walk. So the book of 2nd John is a letter that John wrote to a specific person. In fact, he wrote it to a mother. And some think that he's also writing it to a church that is meeting in a home. But either way, John is encouraging the church and this specific woman to walk in the way of love. So let me read it for you, and we're going to walk through this. To the elder, the chosen lady, and her children, whom I love in truth. And I not only love them, but also who know the truth. And then verse 4, it says this. It says, "It has given me great joy to find some of your children walking in the truth, just as the Father commanded us." Verse 5, "Now, dear lady, I am not writing you a new command, but one we have heard from the beginning. I ask that you love one another." Now, this is the key verse, verse 6. "And this is love, that we walk in obedience to his commands, as you have heard from the beginning. His command is that you walk in love." So 2nd John, it's a tiny book, one chapter, and it is commanding us to walk in love. He's saying, I'm reminding you of this old commandment that Jesus gave, this old commandment that's all through Scripture. What is it that we need to pay attention to? Walk in love. But he doesn't leave that abstract. He tells us, what is love is a great question to ask. Well, he says in verse 5 and 6, he says, walking in love is to walk in obedience to God's commands. So John is giving us this reminder because in verse 7, we see that there are deceivers who are trying to confuse us or change our understanding of what is love. And so John, in verse 8, you'll see he gives a warning. This is what he says. He says in verse 8, he says, "Watch out that you do not lose what you have worked for, but that you may be rewarded fully." He's saying, watch out. The goal, the command is to walk in love. It's the command that you know about what is love. Well, walk in the ways of obedience. That's how you express love. And then he gives this warning. He says, watch out that little lies don't creep in and make you lose what you've worked for, to lose the truth that you've received, to lose the truth about God that you've understand, to lose the truth that you've worked to live out day in and day out. Lies are like that, aren't they? They kind of are subtle and they creep in and they start to tangle us up. And they make the good news seem like impotent news. They make it seem like burdensome news. Or maybe for you, they make it seem like boring news. Here, the people were believing a lie about Jesus. These folks had come in and deceived them about who Jesus was. And John is saying, hey, go back to love and following Jesus and watch out for the lies. Watch out that you don't slip to something different, to different thinking. The letter goes on in verse 10, and it's saying, hey, be careful who you welcome into your home and who you support. So he's saying, don't advance the lie of these, what were called the Gnostic people that were trying to deceive folks, saying they had this extra secret knowledge about God. He's saying, be careful that you don't welcome those guys into your home. That you might be seen as in cahoots with them, that you might be seen as agreeing with them. Well, for us today, we might understand this verse to say, be careful what lies you're welcoming into your home. Be careful what lies that you're letting sit on your couch and get comfortable in your home, to get comfortable in your thinking. You see, we're called to walk in love, but there's this warning to say, be careful what and who you entertain like family. The key idea of 2nd John is saying walk in love and be careful who you let into your home. What teachings, what thoughts take root in your everyday life that show up for breakfast, they show up for lunch, they show up at bedtime. What are the thoughts and the truths that you have allowed into your home? But look back at verse 3. This is what's hopeful. Verse 3 says this. It says, grace, mercy, and peace from God the Father and from Jesus Christ, the Father's Son, will be with us in truth and love. What this verse is saying is, hey, what you know is that grace, this undeserved favor, that mercy, this pardon that God gives where you deserve something wrong, but there's pardon and peace that are from God and from God's Son, Jesus. That's what you get. Grace, mercy, peace. That's the good news. That is a good gift. That life with Jesus is one where you receive grace, mercy, and peace. And secondly, the scripture says that Jesus will be with us. That's wonderful news. That's the encouragement that you are not alone. You are not loved from far. You are not left to walk out this life on your own, that Jesus is with his people. That's what we see in 2 John. And lastly, verse 3 tells us that not only is Jesus with us, he is with us in truth and love. So 2 John is telling you, go for a walk in love, walk in obedience to God's ways, because you first received this gift of grace, mercy, and peace from God through his Son. And Jesus is the one who is with you, reminding you of truth, bringing you truth, and loving you in the ways of God. And so I just want to ask you 2 application questions from this little letter, this little book in the Bible. Is number 1, what have you let into your house this week? John warned against what we should let into our house. So what thoughts, what feelings have taken root? What is something other than the love and the truth of God that is really taking residence in your home? Is it judgment? Is it doubt? Is it weariness? Is it longing? And then the second question to ask today is, what have you let slip, right? What thought or practice have you let go of or have you embraced in this season that maybe it's different than the way of God? Like that first warning said, it says, don't lose what you've worked for. What have you let slip in your story? So let's come back to the basics of the good news that Jesus brought. That's what 2 John is telling us, to walk in love that is fueled by truth, to love one another as we follow the commands of God. So let's go for a walk like 2 John encourages us to. Let's remember the good news and let's pay attention to the warnings about the lies that creep in and the things that we allow to take resident in our heart and our mind. Now you know what the entire book of 2 John is all about. Thanks for tuning in.